Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm excited to tell you about how to store tomato puree in your jar in your cabinet. I have a short story, but before then, let me tell you the ingredients you need. You need tomatoes, pepper, onions, vegetable oil, and water to rinse all these ingredients or wash them. Okay, to my story. A few years ago, I was a student in Nigerian university and I had no refrigerator, but I love white rice and stew. Whoa, that means that every time I wanted to prepare white rice and stew, I have to go to the market to get every ingredient I need. And that was a lot of stress. So if you are like me and you do not like stress, or maybe you even have a refrigerator, but you do not have enough space in there to keep your tomato puree, this method is for you because with each you can store your tomatoes right on your cabinet until you're ready to use it. I mean, the one I have in my house right now, we have about 10 jars, which we haven't touched since May. Okay, so you know what you hop for? For some goodies. Now watch. Okay, so in this video, have blended the tomato puree as which includes the tomatoes, pepper, onions, and every other ingredient. After blending, pour the tomato puree or the puree, whatever puree is made of, just pour it into your pot. Okay, then blend the other quantity and pour everything into the pot. Then you cook on whatever surface you cook with. Okay, so you leave it for about 1 hour depending on how watery you think it is. If the consistency is quite thick, then it might not have to stay for 1 hour, but mine actually had to stay for an hour for it to get dry. So when it is dry, you turn off your cooker and allow the tomatoes to cool properly. When it is cool, get another pot. Layer the pot with a napkin and fill with water to about 1/4 of the pot. Okay, so after you've done that, get your jar, which you'll be using, your glass jar, please note, then fill the tomatoes into the glass jar. Be careful if there was a burned part of the tomato. Be careful not to put it into the jar because, of course, you do not want your tomato stew or your jollof rice to taste bitter when you're finally cooking it. Okay, so carefully fill the jar, and after filling it, you have to clean the edges with maybe a spoon or a brush or your hand. Okay, just a little distraction. If you live in Nigeria or in an area with irregular power supply like Nigeria, trust me, this method of storage is your best bet because you really do not need power. Come on. I mean, you have 1 jar of tomatoes stored on your in your cabinet, and whenever you're ready to make your stew or to cook jollof, you just bring it out and you use. Perchance, you have some quantity left in the jar which you're unable to use, then you would need to store it in the refrigerator. But if you do not want to use your refrigerator at all, you can just get a jar which size you think you'd be able to exhaust whatever tomatoes you keep into it per time. Interesting, right? Oh, yes, I know. Oh, okay, so have scraped out all of the tomatoes in the pot. Now you just watch how I try to tidy up everything, leveling the tomatoes in the jar by shaking it up, okay, so that it's all seated. And like I mentioned earlier, once you don't fill in the jar, clean the edges. I am using my fingertip to wipe the edges of the jar so that it's properly cleaned. Okay, before I pour in my oil, then you can also use the spoon to level the tomatoes in the jar so that it's properly leveled. And when you're pouring the oil, you do not have to use more oil than you would if the tomatoes was well leveled. Now get your half cup of oil and pour into the tomatoes. When filling with oil, make sure that all the top of the tomatoes is covered with oil and that no part of the tomato, I mean no grain of tomato or whatever it is it's called, is left shooting out of the oil. If you find any, you can push it down with your spoon. Okay, now you cover the jar loosely. You don't want it to be too tight. You have to leave it loose so that during the sterilization process it can get really sterilized. Okay, so afterward, take the jar and put it in your pot with water and napkin. Can you see I can still open my jar? So I'm going to try to tighten it a bit. I don't want it too tight and I don't want it too loose. Having ensured that, cover your pot and leave it to cook for about 20 minutes. Yep. Now, after 20 minutes, here we go. The jar is hot, so you need a napkin. Tighten the jar immediately. Tighten it as much as possible. Then lift it out and put it on a slab or a table so that you can properly tighten it further. Okay. Once the tomato jar is well tightened, you just keep it in any part of your kitchen where you want to have it. In your cabinet, on your slab, or whatever. Just know that once you open it and you do not exhaust the contents, you have to refrigerate the remaining. Alright, thank you for watching. Subscribe, please, and like this video. You can follow me on Instagram or Facebook. Bye!